The rain had just stopped, leaving behind the scent of wet earth and a soft hush in the air. Martha sat by her small window, her old wooden chair creaking gently beneath her weight. The afternoon light filtered through the thin curtains, touching her wrinkled hands as they rested on a folded blanket. She had lived in this little house for most of her life. It was quiet, sometimes too quiet. The sound of the wind brushing against the old trees outside was her only company most days. She didn't complain. She had learned long ago that silence wasn't always a bad thing. It allowed her to remember. Her gaze drifted to the photo on the small table beside her. It showed her 20 years younger, smiling, holding a tiny baby wrapped in a white cloth. His name was Daniel. He had been only a few weeks old when she found him. Martha was not his real mother. She had never married, never had children of her own. But when she saw him abandoned at the orphanage steps, something inside her changed. She remembered how he had looked at her that day, his tiny hand clutching her finger as if he already knew he belonged with her. She had promised herself she would raise him with love, give him the life he never asked for but deserved, and she had kept that promise. The years passed quickly, as they always do. Daniel grew into a bright, kind boy. He had a smile that could soften any heart and eyes full of curiosity about the world. Martha had worked long hours at the town library to give him what he needed. Every book she shelved, every long night she spent counting her few savings, was worth it when she saw him laugh. But time has a way of testing love. When Daniel left, for the city to study, Martha stood by the bus stop waving until he disappeared from sight. She told herself it was for the best. He had dreams bigger than their little town. Letters came at first, short but full of warmth. Then phone calls. Then messages grew rare. She understood, or at least tried to. The city was busy, and Daniel was building his life. Yet some nights, when the wind whispered outside her window, she missed the sound of his voice calling her Mom. She kept his room the same, waiting for the day he would return, not out of obligation, but out of love. She believed that love, once given sincerely, never fades. It finds its way back, even if it takes years. And on that quiet afternoon, as the sunlight dimmed and shadows grew long across her small room, Martha felt a strange feeling stir in her chest. She didn't know it yet, but her wait was about to end. Something was already on its way to her door. The morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of dew and distant fields. Martha's small wooden house stood quiet, as it always did. The sound of a bird fluttering outside made her look up from her knitting. Then she heard it, a gentle knock at the door. When she opened it, she saw the postman standing with his usual polite smile. "Morning, Miss Martha. Got a letter for you," he said, handing her a cream-colored envelope before walking away. Her heart gave a small tremor. Letters were rare these days. She closed the door carefully and walked to her small dining table. The envelope was plain, but the handwriting, she knew it instantly. Daniel's. Her fingers trembled slightly as she broke the seal. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Dear Mom, I hope you're doing well. I've been busy with work, but I often think of you. Things are moving fast here, but I'll visit soon. I promise. There's something I've been wanting to tell you in person. Love, Daniel." She read the words twice, maybe 3 times. Her lips curved into a small smile. The word Mom still made her chest warm. It had been too long since she heard it spoken aloud. She looked around the small house. Dust motes floated in the morning light. The clock on the wall ticked softly. Everything was the same, but the world suddenly felt brighter. She made tea, humming softly to herself, remembering when Daniel was little. He used to run through the house barefoot, giggling, asking endless questions about everything. "Why is the sky blue, Mom? Why do birds fly, Mom?" And she would smile, answering what she could, always in awe of his curiosity. Years later, when he left, she told herself not to hold him back. Love, she believed, meant letting go. But she always hoped he would return one day, not out of duty, but because his heart still remembered home. She folded the letter carefully, tucking it into the drawer beside her bed, where she kept all his letters. She touched the pile gently. It was her treasure, proof that she had mattered in someone's life. Outside, the sky was slowly clearing. The rain from last night had washed the earth clean. Martha stepped outside, letting the sunlight touch her face. She looked at the road stretching beyond the fields. Somewhere along that road, her boy was living his life. And now, he was coming back. Her heart whispered a prayer she had repeated for years. Keep him safe. Let him find happiness. Let him remember where he came from. She smiled softly. The house felt less empty that morning. The day Daniel came home, the air felt different. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The dirt road leading to Martha's house glowed softly under the golden light. She was watering her small garden when she heard it, the sound of an engine approaching. It was a rare sound in this quiet part of town. She straightened, her heart skipping a beat. A dark car slowed to a stop in front of her gate. The door opened. A tall young man stepped out, his eyes searching, uncertain for a moment. Then he saw her. Mom. The word came softly, but it broke the silence like music. Martha froze. Her watering can slipped from her hand, water spilling onto the dry soil. She took a hesitant step forward, then another. Her breath trembled. Daniel? He nodded, his smile small but full of emotion. And before she knew it, he was in her arms. She held him tightly, her frail hands gripping his back as tears filled her eyes. For a moment, the years melted away. He was her little boy again, the one who once clung to her skirt, afraid of thunder. They stood like that for a long time, the evening breeze wrapping around them. Inside, the house smelled faintly of tea and old wood. Daniel looked around, smiling. It hasn't changed, he said softly. I kept it just the way you liked, she replied, wiping her eyes. They sat together at the table, just as they used to. Martha poured him tea, her hands still trembling slightly. Daniel looked older, more serious, but there was warmth in his eyes that comforted her. He spoke about his life in the city, his job, his small apartment. He had been working hard, saving money, trying to build something for himself. But then he paused, looking at her with quiet guilt. I should have visited sooner, he said. You must have felt alone. Martha shook her head gently. I wasn't alone. You were always with me. Here. She touched her chest. Daniel looked down, his throat tight. He hadn't realized how deeply his absence had weighed on her. That night they stayed up late, sharing stories, laughing softly, remembering the past. The walls of the small house seemed to breathe again. As Daniel looked at his mother sitting beside the lamp, her face lined but peaceful, something stirred inside him, a promise, silent but firm. He had come back not only to visit, but to repay the woman who gave him everything. The next morning, Martha woke to the sound of voices outside. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming. Then she heard footsteps, laughter, the rumble of a truck. She opened the door and froze. Daniel stood in the yard, talking to a few men carrying tools and wooden boards. He turned when he saw her, smiling. Good morning, Mom. What's going on? She asked, her voice filled with surprise. He walked over and placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You've taken care of this house and me for so many years. Now it's my turn to take care of both. She blinked, not sure she understood. I'm going to fix the house, he said. New roof, fresh paint, maybe even a small porch where you can sit in the evenings. Martha looked around, her mouth slightly open. The house had always been her safe place, but she had long stopped dreaming of repairing it. She didn't want to burden him with her needs. "Daniel, that's too much work," she whispered. He shook his head. "You worked your whole life for me. This is nothing compared to what you gave me." She felt her eyes sting again. The workers began moving around, measuring, talking quietly. The sound of hammers soon filled the air. Daniel rolled up his sleeves, joining them. His hands, once small and soft in hers, were now strong and steady. He carried wood, painted walls, repaired broken steps. Every move was filled with care. Martha sat on the porch watching silently. Each nail he drove, each board he replaced, felt like a wordless thank you. By evening, the old house had begun to change. The faded walls were brighter, the broken fence replaced. Flowers she had once planted bloomed again under the sunlight. Daniel sat beside her, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Do you like it?" She nodded slowly, her lips trembling. "It's beautiful, Daniel. But why all this now?" He looked out toward the setting sun. "Because I want you to see what your love built. I wouldn't be who I am if you hadn't found me." Martha's heart swelled with quiet pride. She looked at him, her son, the boy she had once carried in her arms, now rebuilding the home that once carried both of them. For the first time in years, she felt peace, not because of what was being fixed, but because she realized her love had come full circle. The house stood brighter now, every wall shining with new paint, every board firm beneath their feet. But inside, something was beginning to change. It started with Martha's cough. Soft at first, almost nothing. Then over the weeks, it deepened. She brushed it off, saying she was just tired. But Daniel noticed how she moved slower, how her hands sometimes trembled when holding a cup of tea. He took her to the small-town clinic. The doctor was gentle but serious. "She needs rest," he said, "and good care." Rest. That word lingered in Daniel's mind. For years, she had done everything for him, never resting, never complaining. Now it was his turn. He took time off work. He cooked her meals, cleaned the house, read to her in the evenings. Some nights, when she couldn't sleep, he sat by her side, holding her hand until her breathing calmed. Martha would smile faintly and say, "You don't have to do all this, Daniel." "I do," he always answered softly. "You did it for me." The days grew slower. Outside, the garden bloomed with new flowers. Inside, the air was filled with the quiet sound of care, the soft clink of dishes, the whisper of turning pages, the steady rhythm of love repaid. Sometimes Martha would drift into sleep while Daniel spoke about his life in the city. He told her about his plans, his small dreams, his mistakes. She listened with her eyes half closed, a gentle smile on her lips. "You've become a good man," she said one evening. He looked at her and said, "Because I had a good mother." There was silence after that, a deep, peaceful kind. The house seemed to breathe around them, holding every memory they had shared. That night, Daniel sat alone by the window. The moonlight spilled across the floor, touching the photos on the wall. He looked at the picture of himself as a baby in her arms. She had given everything to a child that wasn't even her own, and now all he wanted was to give her back the comfort she once gave him. Love, he thought, was not about blood. It was about choosing someone and never giving up on them. Weeks later, when Martha's strength had returned a little, Daniel walked into her room carrying something wrapped in brown paper. She looked up curiously. "What's this?" "Something I've been working on," he said. He unwrapped the paper and handed her a wooden frame. Inside was a certificate. Her name was written in bold letters beside his. "Community Home for Children, founded by Daniel and Martha Lewis." She looked at it for a long moment, her fingers trembling. "Daniel, what is this?" He sat beside her, smiling softly. "Do you remember the orphanage where you found me?" She nodded slowly. "I went there last month," he said. "It's still running, but it's old and struggling. So I decided to help. I bought a piece of land near the town. We're building a new home for children who don't have anyone, a place where they can feel safe, just like you made me feel safe." Her eyes filled with tears. "You named it after us?" "I couldn't have done it without you," he said. You gave me everything I have.
This is your legacy, Mom. This home will keep your love alive long after both of us are gone.
She covered her mouth, trying to stop the sob that rose in her throat. For a moment, words failed her. She had lived her whole life quietly, never expecting recognition, never seeking reward. But here it was, the purest gift she could imagine, not in wealth, but in kindness reborn. Daniel leaned forward and hugged her. She held him tightly, her tears falling against his shoulder. Outside, birds sang in the morning light. The air carried the scent of spring. Martha whispered, "You made my life full, Daniel. I don't need anything more." He smiled and replied, "You gave me my life, Mom. I'm only giving it back." They sat in silence after that, the framed certificate resting between them. It was more than a piece of paper. It was the story of two lives bound by love and choice, not by blood, but by the heart. Time passed gently, as it always does. Seasons changed, flowers bloomed and faded, and life continued its quiet rhythm. Martha's health had slowly weakened, but she never lost her calm smile. One morning, as sunlight filtered through the curtains, she whispered Daniel's name and drifted into peaceful sleep. The house was silent that day. Daniel sat beside her, holding her hand long after she was gone. The warmth lingered for a moment, then faded, leaving behind a deep stillness. He buried her beneath the old oak tree she loved, in the small yard she had cared for so many years. Her gravestone was simple, just like her life. It read, "Martha Lewis, a mother to many." Every year after that, Daniel visited the same spot. He brought fresh flowers and sat quietly, speaking to her as if she were still there. On one such evening, the sky was turning gold when he reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was the very first letter she had written to him when he left for college. The paper was fragile now, the ink faint, but the words were still clear. "Dear Daniel, no matter where you go, remember you will always have a home here. Love, Mom." He read it slowly, his voice trembling. Then he smiled. "I remembered, Mom. I never forgot." Behind him, laughter filled the air. Children ran across the field, their voices bright and full of life. The home they had built together stood strong, filled with stories, warmth, and hope. Daniel turned to look at it, his heart full. He had done what she taught him, to love without condition, to give without expecting, to build something that lasts. As the sun dipped below the horizon, he whispered one last time, "Thank you for finding me." The wind rustled the leaves above, gentle and soft, almost like a reply. And in that quiet moment, surrounded by life and memory, Daniel realized something simple but profound. Love never ends. It changes form, it moves, but it never dies. It becomes part of everything it touches. He placed the old letter on her grave and walked toward the sound of children's laughter, his step steady, his heart at peace. The world was quiet but not empty. It was full of her.